Welcome to Lighthouse Keepers, where we explore therapeutic guidance to help you navigate the storms of life. Before we dive in, please remember that while Gina and Charlotte are registered psychotherapists, this podcast is strictly for educational and informational purposes. It is not a substitute for therapy or professional medical advice. If you are experiencing a mental health emergency, please call 988 for Canada's Suicide Crisis Helpline or go to your nearest emergency room.
Gina and Charlotte are sitting down to share exactly who they are, their clinical backgrounds and credentials that they bring to the mic, and, most importantly, why they decided to build this space for you. We know how overwhelming it can be to navigate mental health information online. Their mission with this podcast is to deliver grounded, reliable psychoeducation that you can actually trust.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Gina, and we are the Lighthouse Keepers.
Join us as we explore how to navigate the storms of life. So, Gina, tell me a little bit about yourself professionally.
I am a registered psychotherapist in the province of Ontario in Canada. My foundational training is in transpersonal or spiritual psychotherapy, and I've continued my education in somatically focused psychotherapy modalities like EMDR, deep brain reorienting, relational somatic psychotherapy, sensory motor psychotherapy, which are all modalities that focus on maintaining regulation in the body to help with mental health symptoms. And I also am a certified psychedelic assisted psychotherapist and use plant medicine in my healing with clients.
Amazing. What was your journey to becoming a therapist?
I actually started off as a banker, oddly enough, after university. But I remember being a 6-year-old doing a coloring project with my mom, thinking that one day I would have a center where mummies and daddies could color with their babies. And then, of course, life derailed me, and I was a banker for about 15 years. And at some point, a car accident sort of forced me to go back to school and sort of rediscover myself. And in that process, I realized that I was meant to help people. And that's when I went back to school to become a psychotherapist.
Amazing. What are you hoping to achieve with this podcast? Why is it important to you?
One of the things that bothers me the most is the amount of suffering that exists in our societies. And I remember reading as a, 18-year-old, a book that had a quote that said suffering was a choice. And I remember thinking that that was an absolutely inaccurate statement, because who chooses to suffer? And then, of course, life will teach you the things you need to know. And I realized that suffering is very much a choice, and it's not chosen consciously, but it is the consequence of not understanding how the human body, mind, spirit operate, and experiencing pain and not knowing how to navigate or manage that pain. And then as a consequence of that, making a lot of unconscious choices that hurt not only the self, but the people around us. And then in addition to that, the larger world around us. And so for me, this is important, because if we're going to end not just suffering, but just the harm that people do to each other, then understanding the self and learning how to regulate and be healthy with yourself is, I think, one of the most important things.
Couldn't agree more.
So tell me, Charlotte, what brought you into this field, and who are you professionally?
So I'll start with who I am professionally. I also registered psychotherapist in Ontario through the CRPO. I also got my first degree in spiritual psychotherapy, and I went on to learn relational somatic psychotherapy, EMDR, deep brain reorienting, hypnotherapy. I also studied psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, as well as equine facilitated psychotherapy, which is magical and beautiful.
Very cool.
Is very cool. It never ceases to amaze me how all the modalities just sort of like complement each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been an unending journey of discovery. As far as what brought me here, like most people, I grew up with a fairly complicated childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Some good, some not good. And I managed to find the school that we went to through an intuitive development course of all things that my mom had found. And a lady handed me a brochure, and I was like, okay, that's it. So I went and I learned, and not knowing I had generalized anxiety at the time, graduated youngest of my class, only to then become non-functional. And I had intense generalized anxiety and completely debilitating obsessive-compulsive disorder, to the point where I was agoraphobic, which means I couldn't leave my house. And if I left my bedroom, I'd have to wear Ziploc bags on my hands because I was living with other people.
Right.
So I became obsessed, as you can imagine, with trying to figure out what healing was, why I could heal some things, but not other things. The horses were part of that because it was the only time I had no compulsive behaviors. And I learned later that's because of co-regulation. And we'll talk about that on another episode. But eventually I was able to heal all my disorders and I no longer meet clinical criteria.
Which is amazing.
So great. I mean, you couldn't pay me money to go back.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started learning all the trauma reprocessing modalities. And it was, a game changer for my practice. Obviously, when I was non-functioning, I wasn't practicing. But yeah, so it's a little bit convoluted, but I got there in the end.
Yeah, the path that you needed to take. And what are you hoping to achieve with this podcast?
I would love to be able to help people know that they are not an effed up unicorn, right? You are not alone. You are not some magical being that is unhelpable, and that the things that we suffer with, we don't need to. I think growing up in the time frame that I grew up in, mental health was not the way it is today. And we thought that a lot of these things were untreatable. And that's just not the case. And so if I can help people learn that they don't need to suffer from anxiety, they don't need to suffer from OCD or compulsive behaviors, and that we don't have to accumulate and cart around all of our trauma, then that alone will mean that this is a success for me.
Beautiful. I agree.
So what are you hoping people will get out of this podcast, and what do you think is the best way for them to use it?
I'm hoping people will deepen their awareness of themselves and how they interact with the people around them and the environment around them. I'm hoping they will understand how to be more regulated once they become more self-aware, how to actually manage the emotions and the thoughts and the behaviors that come up. And that will automatically change how they interact with the people in their lives. And I feel like there's a ripple effect when that happens, because if you respond to the environment around you differently, the people around you will notice that difference, and then hopefully that will shift them. And then that, I believe, is how we slowly change the world. So hopefully they will learn the tools and skills that they don't currently have, or deepen tools and skills that they do have, so that they can just show up more emotionally regulated and aware.
Amazing.
And what are you hoping to get?
So I'm hoping to be able to reach as many people as we can. So the way that we're building this podcast is sort of for somebody who has never explored mental health or self-awareness and building. So if that's you, you can start at episode 2 and work your way through consecutively. For people who've been on this journey, I think of it like you can popcorn around and you can find particular topics that you haven't, dove into.
Yep, pick what you need.
Totally. Pick and choose. And so I'm hoping that we can create sort of a database or a catch-all for people to as you need it, it's there.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Gina, for being on this journey with me.
Thank you for joining me.
And thank you all for joining us. We are the Lighthouse Keepers.